Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the webinar with Bryan Kramer and Devin Widgesinger. Today, we'll be talking about the human firewall, breaking through the content clutter. Just a few housekeeping items. On the right side, you will see a question section and a chat section. So throughout the webinar, if you have any questions or you have anything to share, please do that on the bottom right corner. Additionally, we will be talking throughout the webinar on Twitter using hashtag #HumanFirewall. So join us during the webinar and after. So before we kind of get started with Bryan and Devin, I wanted to thank a few of our partners that helped this webinar come to fruition. GetResponse, Social123, Marketo, Double Dutch, Discover.org, and Insightful, of course. So please follow them on Twitter, check them out after the webinar. And so the next sort of intro into kicking the webinar off is our host today, Devin Widgesinger, who is the CEO at Insightful. So I will let him take it away.
Thanks, Hillary. Yeah, I appreciate everybody joining. This is a fun one because I think as we look through the world of content and breaking through the clutter, we live in a day and age where I say this a lot, but people love to buy, but just hate to be sold. If they feel like if it's not truly personalized, if they think that a brand is not speaking to them, or if they think in any way they're being sold to instead of informed, that's just an incredibly difficult position and probably not one that will have longevity to it. And I think Bryan has done just an incredible job of putting forth a lot of content reflecting this particular trend. And how do you actually break through to customers? And I know that there's many times where we might say that people need no introduction. So Bryan is definitely one of those folks. But if you have not heard of him, please do definitely check out bryankramer.com. And he's just one of the best-selling authors on this topic, a keynote and a TED speaker. And joining us today, I couldn't list all of the different accomplishments that he has, but I'd love to turn it over to Bryan to introduce himself more thoroughly and then take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and really excited to be here because this topic is so near and dear to my heart. It's something that I set out to unexpectedly talk about years ago when I was first starting to talk about this concept of H2H, which I'm going to talk about. But thank you so much for having me here. Before we do this, I just want to make sure that everyone is really going to be locked in on this. So if you guys wouldn't mind, do yourself a favor, turn off your cell phones, turn off your ringers. Let's lock in and have such a great time together. I am looking for your questions. I'm looking for your excitement here over one of the biggest topics that we're all facing, and that's how to break through this noise that is out there. There's so much clutter, and there's some very cool ways that I'm going to discuss with you that I think work based upon research and time that I put into this. I'd also love to hear from you. We all need to I think share with each other, and I'm a big proponent of sharing, so I hope you'll share back with me as well during the course of this. So thank you so much. And yeah, as he said, I'm an author and speaker. I also own a company called Pure Matter, which is a marketing consultancy, and we help clients of mid to large clients like Cisco and IBM and so on and so forth. But my real passion is in figuring out the art and science of sharing. And so I have written a couple books. First book is H2H. Second book is Shareology, and we're now in, I think, just over 30,000 books sold on Shareology and 15,000 on H2H. And the reason that I'm really proud of that is because I think the message really resonates. I really worked hard to get around and speak about this kind of stuff, and hopefully it's helpful to you now on this webinar. So I want to go through this, but before we get started, what I'm going to tell you about this is that a lot of times on webinars, I think you get sold, and like he was just saying, and that's not the intent here. The intent is to give you some great information, to get into a place where you're getting some really straightforward tips. So I'm going to I'm literally going to give you tips on how to break through the clutter, how to break through the human firewall. So why don't we go ahead and get started? All right, so pretty intense visual here, which kind of kicks the whole thing off. I'm sure you're not alone. You don't have a lot of time in your day to read and consume the amount of content that's out there, the amount of influence that's happening. The interesting thing about everything that's happening right now is that we don't know what to trust. We don't know where to turn. We don't know what's been factual, if they really put research into something, if there's some human on the other end that's actually creating the content or engaging with us. It becomes this game of understanding really the time that we have invested and how we're going to trust, something, a news source or something that we're going to put ourselves into every day. And once you find that, you tend to be very loyal to that source, because from now on you're going to be reading and digesting it every day. And so what it takes to trust, what it takes to influence yourself, a reader, or others, is what we're going to go through here. And so why don't we go ahead and talk about the next thing here, which is the amount of information that's out there. There's 2.5 quintillion bytes of data created daily. That's 15 zeros. I'm just going to let that digest for a second. That is a lot of content. And how you're going to stand out with your content is obviously becoming more challenging every day. But there are ways that you can do it and almost become such an authority on those pieces of content or on a campaign that will do it in a way that's so authentic and human that people will trust you more. So with content at the top of everyone's marketing list, how do you create even just one piece of content that resonates and influences your potential customer? We're going to talk about that. And how do you break through the seemingly impenetrable human firewall? We're going to talk about that as well. Before I get into that, before I start on every single one of the tips, I just want to make sure that you guys understand where I'm coming from. And for those of you who, and probably most of you may not know me, there is a very simple platform that I really am trying to embody and also share with everyone. 3 years ago, I stood on stage at Bloomberg West. It was kind of a random, not random moment. I was standing there, and I had this screen you're looking at as one of the screens in the presentation. And I said out loud, I believe that there is no more B2B or B2C. It's H to H, human to human. And the response that I got was amazing. And the reason I say that is because I'd been talking about this for years, for like 10 years, on the human-to-human level. The B2B or B2C was much more recent. And the reason is because I think that people really want to know that there's a human behind everything, that there's really some authenticity happening there. And what started to happen just 4 or 5 years ago is we started to automate things. We started to automate and think that we could scale through automation, and it had an adverse effect. I mean, how much spam do you get every day? And you think, man, why is this company not taking the time to get to know me, to serve me better information, to reach out to me personally and ask me what I think, what I like, thank me for buying their product, all these different things that make a company way more human. And so what I'm not saying here is that there is no more business to business or business to consumer when it comes to the process of selling within the company or proceduralizing your way through the marketing aspect of a company. But what I am saying is that everybody has access to the customer, whether you are a B2B or B2C. You can, whether you're an engineer, HR, product marketer, CEO, front desk, administration, you have access to go on Twitter and see what people are saying and respond. And that's something that is new within the last 5 to 7 years. And it's still something that people are processing in terms of the governance models of what companies will allow their employees to do. Now, I think that some companies are great at it and other companies need to get better at it. So that's why I still think it's just as relevant today as when I said it 3 years ago. In fact, it just got named the 2016 Word of the Year by Sprout Social, which is kind of cool. So there you have it. That is H2H, human-human, as a basis for everything I'm about to talk about. I just wanted you guys to understand that. Now, this message, when I said that on that stage, it was shared and got over 80 million impressions over the next 48 hours. It had over 15 languages that it got translated into, and over 2,000 bloggers over the next 2 weeks wrote about that idea, that concept. And so that's when I knew that people were really starting to resonate with this idea. And so then that's when I wrote that book, Human to Human. So it then turned into, something a little more concrete and definable, which I talk about in terms of pillars and how to be more human and so on and so forth. So let's get started. The first tip in being not only the most human, but the most amount of content that you can really understand through everybody that is putting out content out there means that you have to listen. And I know this is like common. It's so simple. It's like, well, of course I need to listen. But I'm not just talking about actual, regular, everyday listening to somebody. I'm talking about active listening. And the difference between listening and active listening means that you're actually making an adjustment along the way, and you're looking for little needles in the haystack, the things that make you smarter, the metrics that will help you guide your way through where people are talking, what they're talking about, and to be able to put together a real plan, because without a real plan, there is no reason for doing anything that I'm talking about here today. You must be a good planner, and you have to look at things through the lens of the people that are talking about your stuff, and that they will give you ideas. They'll give you things to write about. They'll tell you what headlines they like. They'll tell you what content they click on. They will give you the information if you do this right. But if you think that you have to go guess what you need to talk about, then you're doing it wrong. And I want to help you to listen better. And there's some tools actually we'll go through that'll help you too. And without being salesy, we're actually on we're talking about and partnering with a tool here like Insight Pool that actually does listening, and you can curate communities and you can understand what people are talking about. So do you want to talk about this screen here?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. So I think the biggest thing that we see with a lot of folks is that the term, almost influencer marketing is almost becoming a term you say that everybody thinks means the same thing. It's almost like saying the word marketing. And there's a million different things that obviously goes along with marketing. And many people have even said that, digital had largely become domiciled, that, hey, we do real marketing, but then we have some of these digital people that do this digital thing. And then pretty soon, one of the latest quotes we've seen is that it's no longer digital marketing. It's just marketing in a digital world. And I think that's probably one of the very best summarizations of the world that we're living in today. It's no longer kind of a nice to have. It's no longer one of these things where hey, do it if you'd like to, but really stick to things that are just traditional. When you look at how much media is being spent, it's amazing that Google and Facebook still control 85% of those digital media buys. Just gargantuan amount of dollars that flow to just two companies. And the reality is that we live in a day and age, again, where people love to buy and hate to be sold. But how to do influencer marketing in a certain manner takes truly understanding these communities and conversations, because who is an influencer is absolutely not who you think is famous. You might even be surprised that some famous people are actually influential, for things that you had no idea about. I remember when the drummer at Panic at the Disco engaged with Warner Brothers about Lego and started sharing his stories about what a Lego fanatic he was and how he couldn't wait to see the movie. And they actually had no idea that he was famous until they actually looked at his reach. But his reach was actually people that were parents and others that were engaging with him on that topic, not his band and not uh, percussion instruments and things of that nature you normally would have thought. So the true trick is absolutely, like you mentioned, Brian, is to have contextual understanding and listening and making sure that you're not having a preconceived notion of who an influencer could or couldn't be.
Awesome, man. So I can take that take it from here and talk about this concept that everyone is an influencer on something. So you may be asking yourself either two questions. One, how do I become influential? Or two, how do I go out and find influential people on a topic that's interesting to me? Sometimes it's even both. We're all human, right? We're all interested in how to influence and also how to find other people that are influential, because we all want to hang around people that are influential and in circles that we want to belong to, that are interesting to us. And so I believe that everybody is an influencer on something, that you have a passion around something that makes you more trustable or trusting than anyone else on that topic, or a lot of people in your circles. Case in point, I had a bike that I wanted to buy a year ago. I really wanted to get into cycling and road biking, and I went into a store and I asked some questions, and I very quickly learned that they were going to sell me the brands that they had in the store versus what worked for me. Now, it was under kind of the guise of course we're going to give you something that works for you, but the idea behind what happens at stores or at anything where a salesperson is going to address your concerns, they're going to present you with, most of the time, information that helps to serve their product. And now I think we've gotten into this place where sometimes we trust, and most of the time we trust our friends that more so than we do a brand. And so it becomes much more important, and it has become more important, and it's going to get more important, to where brands are going to start aligning themselves with influencers, with people that really, really love the product, because you're going to trust that person more. Now, it's a good idea if the brand not only partners with them, finds them, lets them have insight and transparency into their brand, and then puts them out there into the world with the armed information that is about them, and then the authenticity behind what the person thinks, and the combination of what they think, will be a much more powerful way to grow your army of influencers. So how you do that is really, really important. You want to find the needles in the haystack that are going to already like your product or your brand, and you're just inviting them in. You're inviting them in to be a VIP influencer, or an advocate of what they're already talking about. And this can be done in a paid way and a non-paid way. We'll get into that in a little bit. But influencers and influential people have changed over the course of time. Now, here's a strong point that I wanted to make, not so much around the fact that I gave a TED Talk, but the idea behind the TED Talk will help you to understand what I'm talking about around influence and how influence can work. And a little over a year ago, I gave a TED Talk. It was called "How Sharing Can Change How Sharing Can Change the World." And sharing really is one of those things, as you guys know, I'm really passionate about, and I went through and did a ton of research around what makes sharing go viral, and how people start to align themselves with certain types of shares and the categories and so on and so forth, that we unfortunately won't have enough time to go through today, but I'm going to give you a taste of it. through this story here. And basically what I'm saying here, what I did on stage is I showed a screen that said to everyone, what could I share that might change the world? Now, for the very first time on a global TED stage, TED allowed mobile users, people with mobile phones, to come in and share using their mobile phones. That TED does not allow mobile phones or any kind of internet connectivity inside the theater normally. And so they gave me for the first time, they gave me a green light to do that, to prove that this works. And then I got on my hands and knees and prayed that it actually worked. But it did, thank God. And so I had a chance to have everyone in the theater take a picture of what you're looking at and share it out. And we asked everyone to share what they were most proud of, or that they wanted to change in the world, or if they wanted to help people to inspire peace and creativity, or even just helping somebody to cross the street. It could be anything, as long as it inspired other people to make a change. So it was awesome because we had all these people come back to us with so many tweets, not only from within the room, but people started tweeting from around the world, and we ended up trending internationally. That wasn't even the best part. The best part is that we started to realize through going back into the data, as you'll see on the next screen, that you could start to see where everybody was coming from. If you want to go ahead and go to the next screen, you'll see that. Oh, it is. We didn't have it in there. So one of the things we can see on the screen. One of the things that that I'll post on Twitter so you guys can actually see it just after we get off. So I'll send you guys a screenshot under Human Firewall. So watch out for that. But basically, here's what happened. We had clusters of people that were all over the world. And the clusters, if you can imagine, like thousands of lines going everywhere, but they're in groupings, and each grouping is a different continent, and each continent had a head node, a little bright dot, and that little bright dot is what sent the shares into each country. And the little bright dot represented the influence, the influential people that started to spread this message, sharing inspires. Now here's the key ingredient. If we realized that if we wanted to go back and replicate these thousands of shares, all we had to do is go to those top 15 to 20 people that were the head nodes, that were the most influential people on this topic that happened to share that day. All we had to do was just go to those 15 or 20 people and invite them to share. Instead of speaking or having to speak from a TED stage, we could probably replicate a lot of the same metrics, which is really cool to understand that you can really use influence no matter the size of your business or who you are representing or the type niche that you are. It works for everyone. Influence can affect change around the world that fast by just understanding who your influencers are.
It makes a huge point when you talk about this, Bryan. And again, you mentioned just the numbers of 80 million when H2H hit, and obviously nowadays it's a fairly household term in our industry. And the reality is that when people think about influence, they think about silver bullets. And the reality is that I think that you didn't know that when you published H2H that it would gain that kind of traction, even though it was already happening, meaning that was what was going on in the market, but nobody had simplified it to that particular point. And literally being able to say that in a single sentence that was memorable and got the kind of traction that it did. And I think when people think of influence, there is no such silver bullet. I actually think influence can potentially flip your brand the other way or your company the other way. If you have a message that doesn't really resonate, or if you're saying something negative, you might have influence. Our famous Donald Trump comes to mind because almost every time we look at the influence that he has, it's half positive and then half negative. But it definitely drives conversation. And I think as a brand, the first thing is to make sure that you yourself are in love with your content. You yourself are excited about that being published, and you yourself are excited about that being put on stage. And as an example, one of the companies we're fortunate to work with is Craftsman Tools, and of course we work with a number of different companies in and around this space. But this is a really fun one because Craftsman actually won, I believe it was the Maven Award, for this particular campaign that they ran with influencers, and we were fortunate to be the technology that were powering that. And the interesting part is that through the unique algorithms that Insightpool has created, it's when you think about race influencers, that are enjoy car racing and others, people have a specific demeanor of who they think they are. They think maybe they're thinking of NASCAR, and they're maybe thinking of, you know, the beer drinkers and the riding lawnmowers and NASCAR guys. But the reality is there's an amazing amount of female fans, and Craftsman was one of the ones that sponsored the first female driver for the annual event. And so that's something that you can just get behind too. You love your content and you want that to get out there. Well, just in a matter of just a short period of time of almost 2.5 million, became exposed to this Made to Rage hashtag. 680,000 of the right parties were engaged on these impressions. And then the really interesting thing was when Craftsman was talking to folks and they would engage, they got almost 30% response back because they were doing the right targeting. And the interesting part again about this, and I think you talked about this a little earlier, and maybe we might get to it, is that when you think of influence, there is a strategy that you can pay. And there are great entities that say, hey, pay me and I can deliver XYZ to you. There are some new laws that are coming out from the FTC and others that you have to actually state that if you're being paid. The other half of it is organically, and Craftsman did a great job on saying, hey, look, we believe that people are made up of characteristics now. They're not made up of just demographics, like I was mentioning on the NASCAR and the racers and thinking they'd be male, etc. The characteristics are folks that are engaging in things that are similar, are having conversations around subjects that might be close but not exact. And that's the real difference, is how do you define true influence? And that's literally just by going back to the first point that Bryan made, is that all of us are influential in something. It might be one thing, it might be two things. And that level of influence may be for a certain only audience and not for a massively broad audience. Taylor Swift is going to be far more influential on a certain thing than maybe myself, but I probably am more influential on a very specific niche topic than herself. So I just think it's great to remember this is a good example of a brand that was in love with their content, which you need to have first, and then utilized influencers through technology like ours to be able to get it spread far and wide in the fastest manner possible that drove true sentiment and true conversion from their content.
Awesome. Awesome. I would love to know from everybody right now how what you think you're influential on, because again, everybody's influential on something, and so I would love for you to just jot a little note on the right hand side into the chat and say I'm influential on, and it could be, I don't care, underwater basket weaving for all I care. You are influential on something. I want you to commit to it and say I'm influential in, and it could be something around work, life, fun. I don't care. But let's have some fun with this and see what you are influential on. So I'm going to keep going, but while that's happening, go ahead and jot down what you think you're influential on. Okay? All right, and then also in 2 more screens, I have one more activity that's going to be so fun that we're going to have some participation from you again. So, so get ready for that as well. All right, here is a way. We're talking about how influence, how to plan for influence, and how to break through. Not only the human firewall of trust, but now where do you take that? What do you do with that? How do we build a group of people that trust each other, that want to share? And so here's one way that I've actually worked with. My company's actually worked with IBM, and this will apply to just about any situation that you have. So even if you think, oh, IBM's too big, I can't do this, this can be a template for any size business for what you want. So here's the thing. You guys can put together and find influencers and invite them in and give them a behind the scenes of what's going on with your company or your business or your product, and show that, or service or product, and show them what's happening. And at that very moment, and I suggest you do this in person, because I think, you know, there's a lot of exchange that can happen and dynamics that can happen in person that's way more exciting and enticing to you know, want to belong to something. But I would suggest you get all of those people involved that are, again, influential. Once you've found them, you invite them in a very special and unique way, and you put them into a group that then allows them to expand. And what I mean by that is what we've done here with like IBM New Way to Work. So we invited them to an event that was already happening, and we just tacked on an extra day on the very beginning. And we asked them to become our futurists, to help us understand what does the next few years look like as the new way to work. Now, this could apply again to any situation, the new way to commerce, the new way to HR, the new way to whatever. So again, replicable. So hopefully you see that. Now, we invited them in. We held a really unique, fun experience for a full day to where they helped us to design the future. They went through and started to collect into groups, and we had a moderator, and we had special guest speakers like Faith Popcorn talking about the future to open the whole thing up. And then we had different exercises throughout the day. We had an awesome, you know, catered lunch. We had a masseuse in the corner. We had video cameras running everywhere to really record and understand everything that was happening everywhere, so that we could then take all of this stuff and turn it into content. And the content was being generated by, guess who? The influencers, not by IBM. Now, as the content's being developed in real time, we're able to take that and now build upon it in the future. So we have 12 plus months of content coming out of this great day of the vision of the future of work and how we're going to use it. Now, coming out of that, there were side things that happened that made it even better. We had we had a new product launch the day after this happened, and the influencers were there, and they were helping to share. And they had over 500,000 IBM Verse registrations due to the shares that happened based upon the influencers. We had over 2,000 downloads of gated future work ebooks, generating net new prospects for this new way to work product, done out of this, that were generated from this product. We had trended obviously globally on Twitter from the event itself. We had over 500 pieces of original content produced out of the day, and then we returned 3 times ROI and earned social impressions, which equaled now to date over 3 billion social impressions from this group of, I want to say it was 45 or 50 influencers that were gathered to help out of this one day. So the power of influence is massive when it can be coordinated, helpful, developed, and then measured. And so I just wanted to share that. And again, this is replicable at any size, so don't think that just because it's IBM that it can be only applied to that level. All right, so we're going to shift gears. We've talked a lot about influence, but now I want to talk about what makes a, we'll get back to the human firewall and talk about what makes a sharer unique. And there are different types of sharers. You have to understand the human needs of what people like to share and how they like to share. Not everybody is going to share something because you gave it to them, because that's not within their mindset. That's not where they're comfortable. Some people are more comfortable actually sharing in person, some online. Some people like to share specifically with just a small group of people. And so there are 6 personas that you really need to understand. And by the way, these 6 personas apply to you as well, not just your influencers. And so you can start to categorize influencers into these 6 different ways, or you can see yourself, as I go through these, start to identify which one you are. And in a second, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that too. So the first one is the altruist. The altruist is somebody who shares something very specific. They like to share maybe The Economist all the time. It can kind of get annoying sometimes, actually, in some cases, when you're just sharing the same thing all the time, which is why I always think that it's a good idea to share different things and change it up. But altruists are altruists, and that's who they are. Number two is a careerist. A careerist is somebody who likes to be a thought leader. They want to grow their career through thought leadership, and they will help write, build, and create content that helps to build themselves and other people. The third one is a hipster. Now, this is from the New York Times Insight Customer Research Group that happened 2 years ago. I'm going to modify, and if you could replace with your hide the word hipster with your eyes somehow, or change those words to early adopter. I look at number 3 as more of an early adopter because I think hipster is the wrong thing since the research was done a couple years ago. Early adopters are people that go out and they get their Apple iWatch at 12:01 a.m. the night the Apple Watch comes out. Early adopters are the people that also like to go show people how to use that Apple Watch. So they're teachers. They're early adopters that like to teach other people how to use something. Think about how you can use that to your benefit by knowing that somebody is an early adopter. Number 4 is a boomerang. A boomerang is somebody that is very unique because it kind of breaks down into 2 different areas. One is the consistency that everyone likes to ask a question out that is a boomerang, and only to hear a response so that they can then in turn respond. Now that happens in 2 different levels. Like I just said before, you can have a troll that likes to share out to get you to talk so that they can troll you back, or it can also be a community manager, a social community manager, a social person on some level that likes to gather people and build a community and get people talking only to respond more. So there's a light and a dark side there. Number 5 is a connector. Very easy. This connector, a connector, is somebody that likes to connect 2 or more people together. LinkedIn is a great place for that to happen. And finally, selectives. Selectives like to share one specific thing, and they also like to do it privately. So this is the kind of person that actually does it behind the scenes through direct messages or a private messenger on Facebook or so on and so forth, maybe through an email. They're very selective about who they share with and what they share. And on the most part, a lot of people are selectives, and you can be more than one of these things. You can actually tie into maybe 1, 2, or 3 of these things at the same time. It's where you typically lean towards on the whole that matters the most. It's not that you have to just be one. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, I told you that there was some fun exercise coming next that's going to involve you, and we're going to go to the next screen now, and this is going to help you understand which one you are. I've now had over 10,000 people take this quiz, and it has helped them to understand which type of influencer, share, or personal brand they are, and you will find out, and it takes less than 2 minutes. So if you want to go now to bryankramer.com/human firewall, that's going to take you to a quick quiz of 4 questions. It goes really fast, and you will get immediately a type of your personal brand or your influencer type, which is really cool. Now, I've only had 3 people out of the 10,000 tell me I'm wrong, so I think my odds are pretty good that this is going to work pretty well for most of you, if not all of you. All right, so I'll just leave it up for a quick second, and you can continue to take this while I go on to the next screen. But again, go to bryankramer.com/human firewall, because as I start to now move forward, I'm going to start to talk to each of you in terms of which one you are, and you'll now understand the process. So hopefully you're there taking the quiz right now, and then we're going to go ahead and move to the next screen as you're completing it. Don't worry if I'll just keep talking, or we'll keep talking, and you can continue to keep taking the quiz until you're done, and then come back over. Okay?
Yeah, thanks, Bryan. That's I think this is going to be one of those fun ones where it's. I think there was another one that was like made from colors, and it's amazing how often they're right. So that's the scary part. I wish I wasn't as predictable as I'm sure I'm going to be as I take this quiz. But as people are doing that, I wanted to, really resonate another subject that we talked about a little bit earlier, but to accentuate it further. The reality is that if you have content that you want to distribute to influencers, and you truly don't know the depth of who those parties are, it can backfire. And so, this means that if you really look at, some of the maybe browsing history when you're looking to try and buy a gift for someone else, and if you're looking at women's shoes, and then all of a sudden women's shoes continue to appear every single time you go to every single screen on every single device you possibly use, what a waste of dollars, right? So if people knew that you were in the moment and you bought that and it converted, and they still understood though that maybe you were male and you didn't buy women's shoes that often, and they understood your purchase history and pattern, they're wasting space when they continue to retarget you for an item that maybe you bought and it was just one time. The reality is that the same thing can be said for content to audiences. Understanding true context and a true contextual understanding of who someone is makes a major, major, major difference. And so it also creates moments in time. Perhaps that content is extremely valuable at that particular moment, but we see brands often try and just recycle the same thing and then just hope that if they get it to more and more influencers, that eventually it'll work better. Well, those days are kind of over, because I talk about this somewhat internally, where in email marketing, you can have a net neutral response, meaning if you get an email that is sent to you from a brand and it has nothing to do with anything that you care about, you can just delete it. No big deal. When you're engaging with influencers and your expectation is that they take an activity on behalf of you, and it's content that is not tailored at all to what they do, the reality is that you can get a net negative response, meaning people can talk about your brand not knowing what they're doing, having no idea, wanting to automate relationships. And that can be very, very, very negative, because they have an effect and a reach that can touch who your target customers are. So before truly doing anything, make sure that the content that you have, you're in love with. Like, you love it, and you're so excited about it that if you were given a free Super Bowl commercial, that's the content you would put up there. That's number one. It starts internally. Matching that to people that you feel it's going to resonate because you have a deeper understanding of who they are, that is one of the most powerful things you possibly could do. And don't think that you can shortcut it. And don't think if you spend another minute or two truly understanding somebody, that minute or two couldn't end up saving you, or couldn't end up being one of the greatest sharers, or one of the greatest organic reach, or any of those particular activities if you just took that second minute. And that's what we would encourage you to do as you continue forward.
Okay, so we're moving. First and foremost, I want to let everybody know that your results are amazing. I don't have time right now to go in and see specific names and what you guys are all doing, but I will tell you that the top 3 that are coming through right now are the altruist, the careerist, and the selective, which is very, very interesting. And we've had now several hundred people take the quiz, or the self-identifying influence type. And so I hope it's helpful. You'll get some emails even to help you more along that line. And so let me know what you think about it. You can share it out on Twitter and include me, and I'd love to hear what you think. So now the next step involved, the next tip that I wanted to share, is how to treat your influencers, because a lot of people will approach you, and I know you know this, because as a person who shops at different places, or you sign up for different memberships, or different discounts, or you are becoming an influencer on some different level with some kind of a brand, the worst thing that you could do is not hear from them, or not be treated like you're important to them. And what I think is, if you want to build a great influencer program, you're going to you want to build people into helping you to cut through the clutter on some kind, you need to treat them really well. And that means that you need to reach out to them and ask them, how's everything going? what's going on with you? How can I help you? Maybe it's through the form of what I just did, through a quiz, or through a survey, or through a collection of data of some kind that helps you to understand them so you can serve them better. Number two is to help them know that you're interested constantly by reaching out and offering them things that helps them, not yourself. So if you're going to say, hey, I have this great event coming up. I'm going to take care of, the conference registration. We're going to maybe even fly you there. We're going to take care of your hotel. I'm going to give you a great experience. And you do. You take care of all the details the way that you know you should. From the minute they arrive to the minute they leave, they have an awesome experience. They are going to walk away knowing that you really appreciate them. And it really goes miles. And I know that this isn't new for people who are in the hospitality industry, but most people aren't. And so you must almost embody what makes the hospitality industry, in the good parts of that, great. You need to embody that into your program, and it's going to go miles. Okay, this is another good one. I've been using this. It's in my book Shareology, and also in HH actually. This is something that I like to talk about almost every single time I give a presentation, because it's something that everybody misses. And I know it's really simple. Again, a lot of these are very straightforward, but think about this. When you go to ask somebody to do something for you, or somebody asks you to do something, they reach out and they say, will you please share this? I don't know about you, but my first instinct is not to. And I don't mean to come off sounding like a diva. I really don't appreciate it that they didn't ask, how are you doing? What's going on with you? How can I help you? What's happening in your world? How can we work together? It's the human connection that needs to be made, almost like dating. You really want to understand the person and understand where they're coming from, and then start to grow, almost peel the onion layers, if you will. In college, if you're a communications degree, you're familiar with the onion theory, where and they had us do this in class, where we actually sat with one person with an onion in between us, and we would peel the onion layers back. And each time we peeled an onion layer back, we would have to say something kind of on the surface level, and then by the time we got to the center of the onion, we would be saying something that was almost near and dear to our hearts. And guess what? We were crying because the onion was getting to us so much that we were just tearing up. But the theory is the same thing in life and in business. When you peel the onion correctly with someone else and work through those steps with getting to know somebody correctly, by giving before you ever ask for anything, it's going to make a difference, and they're going to stay with you to help share your stuff and build your community. It'll just happen. You don't even have to ask most of the time.
The point is that people are people, regardless of where you are connecting with them. Like, the reality is, I think even in our case, Brian, we probably had a relationship far before we ever met in person. And obviously, being on different coasts, we don't see each other often. But the reality is, there never has been a time where we would approach it and say, hey, Brian, can you do this for us? Can you do this for us? It just simply doesn't happen that way. And the reality is that there are so many digital relationships that are forged that people forget they are still relationships. And I think Jill Rowley says this too. She says, you don't show up naked on the first date, right? You just simply don't do things that you would if you were in person, but simply because you're behind the safety of a computer screen or a mobile phone, people think that they can do things. And that just simply comes through, again, with this net negative response instead of just net neutral. It's no longer people are going to just simply say, like, oh, well, I guess I'll just ignore that. That's not going to happen. They'll actually become negative pretty quickly. So couldn't reemphasize this point enough, but definitely give way before you ever ask for a get.
All right. So there's the side where we're treating people through like VIPs. We're helping them to understand how we can help them without asking. And now we need to understand what it means and how it means to build your community in a way that that relates to real life. Because life is not just business. Life is really around working hard and playing hard. If you work yourself to death or hustle or grind or anything, that all those words that are being thrown out right now, which are debatable on whether you should do that all the time. I believe that there is a proper balance that needs to happen with your community, with the people that you're trying to get to know, with the influencers you're trying to build a relationship with the people that are trying to share your content. You want to get in there and you want to help them also have fun. What that means too is that you're going to help them have fun with each other, that you're going to introduce other people to other people, that they're going to get to know people through your hard work of building a community. They're going to get out there and they're going to appreciate the fact that you just shared a relationship with each other. And just think about it this way. Google is built on a platform originally of search. Originally, you would go to Google, you'd search for something that you wanted, and you would end up somewhere else. You wouldn't actually use Google or their products for anything other than sending you to where you want to be. But yet in your mind, you would go back and thank Google, because Google got you to where you wanted to be. And next time you wanted to do that, guess where you went? Back to Google, because they always got you to where you needed to be. They connected you with the right content, the right things. They developed an algorithm that worked. Relationships are the same way. When you connect people to the right place and you have fun doing it, you go out, like in the case of the IBM case study that I was sharing with you, we actually surprised all the influencers that night by taking them on a bus, and they had no idea where they were going, and we went to the International Culinary Center in New York, and we surprised them with an Iron Chef cook-off, and we had three of really famous chefs as the judges, and we divided, I think it was 100 people into 2 teams, and we had a massive amount of cooking going on that helped everyone to create appetizers, dinner, and desserts. Man, I'm telling you, they had more fun doing that, and we had so much great stuff. In fact, we even recorded it and had some content that came out of it as well. So playing hard can really develop relationships and develop great ability to share and understand each other just as much as just reaching out to somebody and trying to get them into your business. Try to also get them into working into a playful situation as well. All right, tip number 9. The experience happens long after the event. Whether it's a virtual event, it's a in-person event, an event is just the start. The actual, real, good, quality stuff happens once it's over. Now you're starting to build your community. And what that means is that you need to build a place for everybody to have a conversation. Now, I have an H2H chat group that is up, and you can all feel free to join it if you like, if you type in H2H chat group. It's a private group, but we'll go ahead and we accept real people. That's why it's private, just to make sure that you are a real person. But I suggest that you take on the same methodology. What I mean by that is that you can actually have an experience, again, virtually or in person, or however you want to organize that, much like this webinar. And then afterwards, where do people go for more answers? Because people, again, they want to connect. And helping them to connect is really important. So here we use Facebook chats. Facebook groups. You can go create a Facebook group almost instantly, invite people in, and boom, you've got everyone talking to each other. Now, it may take a little more community management and enticement to take part, but if you've done the experience the right way, meaning the event, much like I showed you with IBM, went well, then we invite them into a group, and they are already friends. So now we're just hosting the conversation. Hopefully that makes sense. It's hard on these webinars to have feedback. So again, tweet me or message me and let me know how you guys are, how this is all resonating with you, so that I can I can get some feedback here. But anyway, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, this is just one of my own personal tips. It's a human tip, and I believe personalization is key. A lot of you may reach out, I get this all the time, where they reach out and ask me a question, because once we're connected on email, I get, you have access to me, and I'll reply to everybody, maybe sometimes not right away, but eventually within the next day or two. I reply to just about everyone. And I believe everybody should. I believe every company and every CEO and everybody should reply on some level, as long as it's a real, human connection. Then I take it to the next level, and I think this could work for you, work for everyone. If you really wanted to cut through the clutter, you wanted to break through the human firewall, you could do this easily by creating a video response and emailing it to that person. It's such a cool thing, right? So you could, on your iPhone, I do this on Saturdays while I'm walking for like 15 minutes. I'll create one like about 10 to 15 different videos, and I'll just send them to each different person. And then I get some amazing replies like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you just took the time to do that." You can also go to YouTube app, the app, and you can record it straight into the app, and it will make it into a private video that you can shoot the link over to another person as well. So I highly recommend doing things that are much more personalized and in that H2H connection that really identifies that other person as a name, and you're really helping them, not a massive group of people with a blind spammy email. All right, tip number 11, and we're just about to close out here. This is a post that I collected with all these awesome influencers in December. We do it every December, and basically it's what predictions we have for the next year. And so I've got brands and CEOs and CMOs and influencers and all kinds of great people in here. A lot of faces you may notice and know that that share their insights into what's going to happen in the following year, their predictions. But the cool thing about this is not just that they're sharing it with us to post here, but also that that they're also sharing it out because they're part of a greater community of this great piece of information that that may help people. So we now had 69 experts sharing out 69 different times, and that is a byproduct of just doing something that collects a community of people, putting something together like this, and then allowing them to all share that out on behalf of their own prediction expert friends.
Bryan, thank you very much. We appreciate all the time you spent thus far, and I think we'll end on this. The end result for all of these activities is trying to figure out how somebody will buy your product, and that's obviously nothing needs to be altruistic about that, and that's true. I think the reality is making sure you're understanding patterns of where they're going, what they're doing, and where they're at in that journey, and then to engage them at that right point, at that right time, to get others to engage for you. Again, we live in a day and age where people love to buy but hate to be sold. And you have an arsenal of things at your fingertips that you can do that don't literally cost anything. We can buy technologies like ours or others that help in that process. But truly, these are all tips that you should be able to use that don't cost a thing. And I think, Hillary, we have maybe time for just a few questions. I know we're coming close to the end of the hour here, but maybe do you have a few and direct them at myself or Bryan on what the audience is asking?
Yep, we've had a few questions come through. We're only going to be able to cover 3, but let's take questions offline. Still use hashtag human firewall. Tweet Bryan and Devin if you have additional questions. But one of the questions that kind of came through for you, Bryan, was how do you bring true authenticity to your social marketing efforts?
Ooh, that's a good one. Can we get a name to the person who said that?
It was.
While you're looking for it, I can talk.
Yeah.
But I love that question. So how are you authentic in your efforts? Okay, so I talked about how sometimes people just share one thing. And as humans, we're 3-dimensional individuals. We have up days, we have down days, we have things that we're interested in that sometimes we share, sometimes we don't. But if you get to know someone, just like peeling the onion layer, you start to realize that there's a much deeper side to every individual. So the idea is, how do you share that piece of you that that maybe you're not used to, or you don't know how to do that. So I think that people should, and I write about this in my book called The Rule of Thirds. And if you're a photographer, you're very familiar with this. A photographer will take a picture that is sometimes offset to the left or to the right. It's called the rule of thirds. If it's in the center every single time, it's not as amazing a photo. But when you offset a photo and it's at different positions, a person or the focus point is at a different position, then the photo becomes a little bit more interesting. Same thing with sharing. The same thing with authenticity through sharing. People expect to see different things from a brand or person when they want to know that they're really real, that they're really authentic, that they really want to connect with them. And to do that, I believe you should share in the rule of thirds, and every business and person should do this. They should share a third about other people and other things, a third about tips, news, tricks, humor, and then a third about themselves. So if you've noticed that I've actually moved your talking about yourself to only a third of the total. The rest of it is about other people, other things, and being helpful or being humorous. And now you've created more of a dynamic, more of an authentic dynamic as to who you are and what types of things you're going to share.
Awesome. Another question that came through, are there any research websites that can be used as a tool to discover top influencers in a given industry? And this was by Peredur, P-E-R-E-D-U-R. I'm not sure how to pronounce that correctly, but just wanted to give credit to who asked the question.
I'm sorry, can you say the question one more time for me?
Yeah. Are there any research websites or tools to help discover top influencers in a specific industry that you know
of? Dare I say Insight Pool?
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of tools out there that can help you. First and foremost, just using Twitter itself, if you're just trying to go at first at it, and you just want to do some initial informal research, then just using Twitter is not a bad idea. But the size audience for most people is pretty deep, and you're going to want a tool that actually takes down things from hours to minutes, and that's where I'm a little biased. So Insight Pool really will do that, because I've used the tool and I know that it's going to do. I don't have the staff to be able to go in and just manually curate all this information. So by having the ability to use keywords and size and location and all these different things that start to curate the information down in just even a few minutes, and then work with the data from there. So it's like your tool is helping you, Insight's helping you to filter it all, but then that's where the human manual side takes over, is the actual engagement side, where now you need to do something with it. You have to connect, you have to reach out, you have to make sure that you're fulfilling the influencer relationship side.
Cool. And then another question that came through from Jason Sparks. He wanted to know, can you give a little bit more insight into characteristics versus demographics, and how you can use that in an influencer marketing strategy?
Yeah, you guys may be able to jump in on this even because you go through this quite a bit. But characteristics like demographics and all that plays a huge role in what the goal is. But the key to the whole thing is what's your objective. The objective, or the goal should always drive the strategy. So your strategy is going to, like I said at the very, very beginning, if you're not planning, then you're wasting your time. And listening and planning is going to be your best effort. Understanding what demographics and psychographics you want is going to certainly help you, but you have to start with the goal in mind. So what are the benchmarks that you're going to use? Are they are they click-throughs? Are they higher level vanity metrics like impressions, which I hope that we soon get away from? Are they looking at time on page, video playthrough, all the way through on your content? on your video, you know, whether somebody's watched even a portion or all the way through a video is very helpful. So these kinds of things, like digging deeper into what's happening with your content, is going to then go back and drive how to then make it better. And that's where your psychographics and demographics come in. Okay, we know a lot about how your content's working. Then start to build your strategy around that.
Yeah, and I think the quickest way to break it down is demographics are who you are, and characteristics are what you do. So if you happen to be a 23-year-old male, but you're really into uh, AARP cruises, then that's what you should be marketed to about. If you happen to be a 50-year-old female, but you're a huge NFL fan, then you should be marketed to that way. So the reality is that just because somebody is something, that does not mean that's what they do, and that's how the world of influence changes everything.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bryan, and thanks for everybody for attending the webinar today. Like I said before, we'll continue the conversation on Twitter using hashtag #HumanFirewall. Make sure to follow Insightful, Bryan Kramer, Devin, and then you can find Bryan's books, both Shareology and H2H, on his website. And we appreciate everybody joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.